There are some celebrities who build careers so successful that the public begins to believe they have figured life out completely. For years, Rachael Ray seemed to be one of those people. She wasn't a movie star. She wasn't a pop singer. She didn't rely on scandal, controversy, or flashy headlines. Instead, she won over millions of people with something much simpler. A warm smile, a relatable personality, and the comforting belief that anyone could create a great meal at home. To her audience, Rachael Ray felt less like a celebrity and more like a friend who happened to be on television. But behind the success, behind the best-selling books, television shows, and massive business empire, there was another story unfolding. A story about a marriage that spent years surviving pressure, rumors, heartbreak, and challenges that most relationships never face. And the deeper you look into Rachael Ray and John Cusimano's relationship, the more surprising their story becomes. Because while many celebrity marriages collapse under the spotlight, they're somehow endured. The question is, how? To understand that answer, we have to go back long before the fame. Long before millions of viewers knew her name. Long before the cameras ever started rolling. Rachael Ray grew up in a world where food wasn't simply food. It was family. It was tradition. It was connection. Restaurant kitchens were practically her second home. Her Sicilian mother worked in the restaurant business, and from an early age Rachael watched how food brought people together. The sights, the sounds, the controlled chaos. Every lesson she absorbed during those years would eventually shape her future. But at the time, she wasn't dreaming about becoming one of television's biggest stars. She was simply learning how to work, how to serve people, and how to make something ordinary feel special. As she got older, that work ethic became impossible to ignore. Rachael wasn't afraid of long hours. She wasn't afraid of pressure. And she certainly wasn't afraid of taking chances. Eventually, she began managing a gourmet food market in Albany, New York. It was there that an idea started taking shape. Most people wanted to cook. They just didn't think they had the time. Rachael believed otherwise. Instead of focusing on complicated recipes or expensive ingredients, she started teaching simple classes designed around one powerful concept: meals that could be prepared in just 30 minutes. The idea was practical, accessible, and surprisingly revolutionary. People loved it. Word spread quickly. Soon local media began paying attention. Then national media. And before Rachael fully realized what was happening, an opportunity appeared that would change her life forever. In 2001, the Food Network came calling. Almost overnight, Rachael Ray transformed from a local food expert into a national sensation. Viewers connected with her instantly. She wasn't polished in the traditional television sense. She wasn't trying to be perfect. And maybe that's exactly why people trusted her. The audience saw authenticity. Someone who seemed genuine in a world increasingly filled with carefully crafted personalities. As her popularity exploded, so did her career. New shows, new opportunities, new levels of fame. Everything seemed to be moving faster than ever. Then something happened that Rachael wasn't expecting. She met someone who would change her personal life just as dramatically as television had changed her professional one. His name was John Cusimano. And their first meeting wasn't exactly what you'd expect from a future love story. The two met at a friend's birthday party in 2001. At first, Rachael made an assumption. She believed John was gay. It wasn't meant as an insult. It was simply her first impression. But John quickly corrected her. And from there, something unexpected happened. The conversation never stopped. What began as a casual introduction turned into hours of talking. Hours became the entire evening. And before they realized it, they were still talking at 4 o'clock in the morning. For both of them, something felt different. There was an immediate connection. A comfort level that rarely happens between two people who have just met. And after that night, they kept talking. Every day. Not occasionally. Not when they had time. Every single day. The connection grew stronger with each conversation. On paper, they seemed like an unusual match. Rachael's world revolved around food, television, and entrepreneurship. John was an entertainment lawyer. But he also had another side. A creative side. He performed as the lead singer of a rock band called The Cringe. Their personalities were different. Their careers were different. Yet somehow, they balanced each other perfectly. As Rachel's fame continued growing, John remained by her side. And for several years, their relationship appeared remarkably stable. Then came September 2005. In one of the most romantic settings imaginable, the couple married in a stunning Tuscan castle in Italy. The wedding looked like something straight out of a fairy tale. Beautiful scenery, historic architecture, a dream location. From the outside, it seemed as though Rachael Ray had achieved everything. Career success, financial success, and now, a storybook marriage. But celebrity relationships rarely stay protected for long. Because once fame reaches a certain level, privacy begins disappearing. And eventually, the tabloids arrived. At first, the rumors seemed like background noise. The kind of gossip that follows almost every public figure. But over time, the accusations became more serious, more invasive, and more damaging. Stories began appearing that questioned the strength of their marriage. Rumors suggested infidelity. Speculation spread across tabloids and entertainment websites. Then came one particular report that generated enormous attention. A National Enquirer story published in 2013 made explosive claims about the couple's private life. Suddenly, Rachael and John found themselves defending their relationship against allegations they insisted were completely false. For many couples, that kind of public scrutiny becomes devastating. Trust gets damaged. Stress grows. Resentment builds. And relationships break apart. But Rachael wasn't willing to stay silent. She publicly addressed the situation. Not with anger. Not with dramatic outbursts. But with visible frustration. She explained that stories like these weren't harmless entertainment. Real people were being hurt. Real families were being affected. Meanwhile, reports suggested that John considered legal action against the publication. Together, they pushed back against the rumors. And perhaps most importantly, they stayed together. Yet even after surviving public controversy, life still had more challenges waiting for them. Challenges far more serious than tabloid headlines. Because sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought in public. They're fought behind closed doors. And soon, Rachael and John would face obstacles that no amount of fame or success could prevent. By this point, Rachael Ray and John Cusimano had already survived something many celebrity couples never do. Years of rumors. Years of public scrutiny. Years of strangers analyzing every detail of their relationship. But life was about to remind them that some of the most painful challenges don't come from headlines. They come without warning. And they can change everything in a single moment. For years, Rachael's home had been more than just a house. It was her sanctuary. The place where she escaped the pressure of television, deadlines, and public attention. It was where memories were made. Where family gathered. Where life felt normal. Then, in 2020, disaster struck. A devastating fire tore through the property. The damage was catastrophic. Rooms filled with memories were destroyed. Personal belongings vanished. Years of history disappeared almost overnight. For anyone, losing a home is heartbreaking. But for Rachael, the emotional impact went far beyond the physical destruction. A home isn't just walls and furniture. It's the place where your life happens. And suddenly, much of that life was gone. As images of the aftermath emerged, fans around the world expressed sympathy. Many wondered how Rachael was coping behind the scenes. The answer seemed to be found in one simple fact. John was there. Not for a photo opportunity. Not for public praise. Just there. Standing beside his wife as they faced the painful process of rebuilding. For a while, it seemed the worst was over. The couple began looking forward. Trying to recover. Trying to create a sense of normalcy again. Then life delivered another blow. Only a year later, Hurricane Ida brought new destruction. Parts of the property that had already survived the fire were hit again. Repairs were disrupted. Recovery became even more complicated. It felt almost unbelievable. As if every time progress was made, another setback appeared. For many people, repeated hardship creates cracks in a relationship. Stress grows. Patience disappears. Arguments become more frequent. The emotional weight becomes difficult to carry. Yet somehow, Rachael and John kept moving forward. Not because everything was perfect, but because they refused to quit. And that's an important distinction. Many people assume successful marriages are built on constant happiness. The truth is often very different. The strongest relationships are usually the ones that survive difficult seasons. The ones that keep going even when things become messy. And according to Rachael herself, messy is a word that sometimes describes her marriage perfectly. Over the years, fans often imagined Rachael and John living some ideal celebrity love story. A picture-perfect relationship untouched by ordinary problems. But Rachael has never really presented her marriage that way. In fact, she's been surprisingly honest. During conversations on her podcast, she offered a glimpse behind the curtain. And what she described wasn't perfection. It was reality. Rachael admitted that she and John argue a lot. They're passionate people. Strong personalities. People with opinions. People who don't always agree. To some listeners, the revelation sounded shocking. Celebrity couples are often expected to present a flawless image. Arguments aren't usually part of the public narrative. But Rachael wasn't trying to sell a fantasy. She was describing a real marriage. One built on honesty rather than appearance. And perhaps that's one reason they've lasted so long. Because neither of them seems interested in pretending everything is perfect. They fight. They disagree. They frustrate each other. Yet somehow, they continue choosing each other. Again and again. Year after year. And while critics often focused on the conflicts, they sometimes overlooked something equally important. The loyalty. Because whenever life delivered a major challenge, the couple remained united. Not every relationship survives public scandals. Not every relationship survives personal tragedy. Not every relationship survives years of pressure. But Rachael and John kept finding a way through. Then came another major turning point. One that had nothing to do with rumors or disasters. It involved a decision that surprised millions of viewers. In 2023, Rachael Ray stepped away from her daytime television show after an incredible 17-season run. For nearly 2 decades, audiences had welcomed her into their homes. The show had become a staple of daytime television. Walking away from something that successful couldn't have been easy. Yet Rachael chose to leave on her own terms. Not because she was forced out. Not because her audience disappeared. But because she was ready for a new chapter. It was the kind of decision that often makes people reflect on everything they've built. Their careers. Their achievements. Their relationships. Their lives. And through that transition, John remained part of the picture. Still present. Still supportive. Still standing beside the woman he had met more than 2 decades earlier at a birthday party. Then, in August 2024, fans received another glimpse into their relationship. A simple message, but one that spoke volumes. For Rachael's birthday, John shared a heartfelt tribute. Among the words he used were 2 that captured their entire journey. Forever love. Forever home. It was a touching sentiment, especially considering everything they had endured together. The rumors. The accusations. The criticism. The fire. The storms. The arguments. The rebuilding. Through all of it, they remained connected. Of course, no one truly knows what happens inside another person's marriage. Public appearances only reveal part of the story. Social media reveals even less. And every relationship contains private struggles that outsiders never see. But from what the world has witnessed, Rachael Ray and John Cusimano have demonstrated something increasingly rare. Persistence. Not the glamorous version of love that appears in movies. The everyday version. The version that requires effort, patience, forgiveness, and the willingness to stay when leaving would be easier. Perhaps that's why their story continues to fascinate people. Because it challenges the way we think about celebrity relationships. We're used to seeing dramatic breakups, public feuds, sudden divorces, relationships that crumble under pressure. Rachael and John followed a different path. Not a perfect path, but a lasting one. And maybe that's even more impressive. Rachael Ray spent her entire career making complicated things feel simple. She taught millions how to create meals without stress, how to turn ordinary ingredients into something special, how to bring people together around a table. But her greatest lesson may have happened away from the kitchen, in a marriage tested by fame, rumors, loss, and adversity. A marriage that refused to collapse when many expected it to. And perhaps that's the real story. Not that Rachael and John avoided difficulties, but that they faced them together. As the cameras faded, as the headlines disappeared, as life became unpredictable, they kept choosing each other. And sometimes, that's the most remarkable love story of all. So what do you think? Is Rachael Ray and John Cusimano's relationship proof that real love can survive almost anything? Or do you believe the pressures of fame eventually leave scars that never completely heal? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy uncovering the untold stories behind Hollywood's biggest names, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next story you won't hear anywhere else.